Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Timo and Julian Talk Philosophy. Today, we want to talk about why do people risk their life to get a perfect selfie. Some of you might wonder why we choose such a topic. So, let me make a few examples that were in the headlines some time ago. For example, the BBC wrote on 4 October 2018, selfie deaths. 259 people reported dead seeking the perfect picture. The article says that the quest for extreme selfies killed 259 people between 2011 and 2017, a 2018 global study has revealed. End of quote. The Express wrote on 10 March 2021, so very recently, in a report by Leah Stanfield, selfie deaths. Horror study shows more than 300 injured trying to take the perfect photo. Quote, research has discovered 330 instances of people being injured or tragically killed in search of the perfect snap. End of quote. And the NPR wrote on 6 May 2019, hundreds have died in selfie-related death since 2011. So we see this is a quite important and recent topic. And to discuss this matter, I welcome Julian Mitran. Hello, Julian.
Hello, it's great to be back.
So, Julian, just to make things clear straight from the beginning, I think it is clear that accidents can happen. And so we will not talk like about why accidents generally happen, because there is never a guarantee in life. What we want to talk about is why do people actually risk their life for a perfect photo, knowing that they risk their life. So we want to do the difference straight from the beginning. So there are deaths probably occurring because people simply die when they are in daily life situation and something happens. And then there are people who willingly go very close, like to a waterfall, to a cliff, where it is obviously, and there are even warning signs that people ignore. So we are talking about this second group of people where it is not just a coincidence that happened or an accident that happened, but where the accident was more or less not predictable, but where there was a clear sign of danger. So people who are aware of the danger, but who still rather choose to take the perfect photo. And my first question to you today is, why do you think people risk, like warning signs, climb over fences or other barriers just to get a perfect selfie?
I think it's quite complicated in many ways, but we usually need to understand more in depth how usually social media kind of changed substantially the way in which we view ourselves and ourselves in relationship to the society in which we live. One thing that social media did is this basically it created in a way the birth of parasocial relationship, meaning that unlike the traditional relationship that we used to have, meaning I know somebody personally, that somebody can be a friend, a coworker, a relative, an acquaintance, some usually somebody that we that I usually physically interact with, maybe not on a daily basis, but maybe I see him or her regularly. And one thing that social media did was to create this parasocial type of relationship, meaning that uh, uh, And this is you can see it a lot in the influencer type of culture. The influencer or somebody that is very influential on social media, and especially I think this topic with dangerous selfies relates a lot to Instagram, because every type of social media platform basically has its algorithm and its rules and its culture, the way in which its culture basically develop. I think mostly we tend to present ourselves in a very unrealistic manner and you'd say, well, this is not something like from yesterday. Yes,
Okay, wait, because you mentioned a lot, and I think we should elaborate this step by step. Um, Before we shame any platform like Facebook, Instagram, and others, I mean, it seems that we should not do this from the straight from the beginning, because we have several individuals using this
No,
platform,
it's not
so we
about
have to go.
shaming. It's not about shaming. It's just maybe a side effect of the way in which things evolved. I mean, social media brought us a lot of like good aspects in our life.
So before we evaluate social media, we have to understand that what you said about parasocial phenomena. So what is such a parasocial phenomena? I mean, to give us a kind of definition. What is parasocial?
Parasocial, they are not like there is no unitary definition, but I could define it as a social relationship, like between at least two people, but usually in our case, we usually are talking between a person and very big groups, of people that are not connected, meaning that you communicate, you exchange ideas without knowing that person in real life. And this is like the most basic characteristic of parasocial relationship, meaning that
Okay. Wait. So the first thing is, because I want to understand it step by step. So bec- because the first thing is then that parasocial means it is not socializing in person, but seemingly if you know a person and you call this person once or twice a month, this is not parasocial, right? Or is this also parasocial? So I mean, is the question, is it the thing that we talk about, is it that a person knows the other person, or does parasocial mean that you want to reach as many that you don't know?
usually you want to reach as many as you don't know.
Okay. So you want to reach many people and you want to influence them, right? So we have
Yes.
to. So now that we know that what is parasocial, we have to ask what is an influencer, because I think these two go together. So what is the characteristic of a influencer today?
Usually, as I said, because we are not talking about very clear definitions here. What I see as an influencer is a person that usually has as his or her primary, let's say, job or activity in general, that of generating content, being, photo content, written content, or a combination of both. I think that's most of the case.
So
And
is a content creator and an influencer synonymously, or
not actually, because what would be a huge difference between, let's say, content creator and influencer is the fact that the influencer usually uses like social media as a platform, because when you say content creator, you can have from like, I don't know, somebody that creates draws animes, to like a columnist at online paper. So we are not talking about somebody that usually has an intellectual type. He or her doesn't generate intellectual type of content.
so an influencer is someone who tries to reach people on social media but seemingly the word influencer already includes the word to influence. So it seems that that person wants to influence someone. And
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, everybody that creates content, like, I said, a columnist from like an online paper, everybody wants through his or her opinion to influence like the people that they address. But one thing I see a very clear definition or distinction between like an influencer and, let's say, a content creator in the form of a columnist is that influencer usually only uses social media, doesn't produce like intellectual type of content, and usually his audience, his target audience is much more, how to say it, random or contextual, because the way in which algorithms usually work, you can get like a sponsorship or like a type of a suggestion for like the content of so and so based on your preferences, while when you are talking about columnists, you usually his or her readers go like they already know him or her, and they already reach specifically for that newspaper because they know the specific core of the content.
but they also only know that columnist in a parasocial form, right? Because they don't know him personally, but they can engage with him through email, through a letter, or whatever. So it is, according to what we said before, also a kind of parasocial contact, right?
uh, No, actually, what I think it's like a difference between parasocial and the the relation between like a columnist and his readers is that the influencer usually presents himself or herself as a type of friend. We exchange photos. I am sending you a photo with my kitten. I'm using your makeup and I'm sending you like a photo with how I used your lipstick or something like that.
Okay, wait. So parasocial and seemingly means that the person kind of gives you the impression to be a personal friend of you, even though you don't know the person.
Exactly.
And as an influencer, you kind of want to be an, let's say, idol
Yeah,
for
yeah.
others to follow. But this means, of course, that you have a certain responsibility, because you don't do something and you can say, like, okay, I just did it, but no, I never meant anyone to do this as well. I mean, a person who is an influencer knows that he or she is going to influence people.
And
So,
what you said is very important. The fact that influencer are like a columnist, because we are talking about, the people that work online. And usually when you are talking about influencer, his audience usually try to emulate everything that relates to his lifestyle, to his look, to his opinion, while the readers of a columnist, somebody that writes for a paper, they only take his written opinion. I mean, nobody goes on the page of a columnist and they want to, oh my god, I want to recreate his fashion sense.
okay, so an influencer has an even more personal responsibility of what the person is doing, because one knows that if he or she is seen in public doing something, the other people want to imitate it because they are fans. So it is not like an author where we can say that there's the work and there's the author, and one has to see one and the other, because the influencer is also, let's say it, and no, it's not the perfect term, but let's say the influencer presents himself also as the work. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's here. Basically, we are talking about this very attached thing of personal branding. I mean, him or her as a person, they are the product. As with a columnist, you can make a much clearer distinction between the person, the writer, and the work that he produces.
But the
His
question that we have now, that if the influencer has a certain responsibility, um, why does an influencer to reach more people or to take photos um, accept dangerous places? Because the influencer has to be aware that if he or she is making a, let's say, beautiful landscape photo, but on a cliff, at the edge of the cliff, I mean, other people will probably do the same because they think like, oh, that person made a photo at the edge of the cliff. I want to do that the same. So under the under the under the circumstance that we saw that an influencer has a responsibility, a personal responsibility, then the question is, why do they do such dangerous things, and why do they do dangerous selfies? I mean, I know they do it to reach more people, because if you do dangerous things, you get more attention. But on the other hand, it is kind of, let's say, unethical, because you know that you do something that is dangerous, and you have to be aware that people will probably do that as well. Other people will imitate you. So everything that you should do should be done considerably.
Yeah, I think there is like actual cause. What I see is the following thing. Um, when we are talking about influences, usually, and we have people that are usually from this type of lifestyle community, beauty community, stuff like that. I think there is the following thing, and I can make the comparison with the columnist because it will make more sense. The fact that at the end of the day, everybody can, I know this will sound really bad. Everybody can dress up, everybody can put makeup on, everybody can, I don't know, take pictures outdoors. But when you have this situation in which people usually create a brand and their content is based on things that mostly everybody can do, there is this huge pressure of them to kind of try to do something that is so different, something that maybe others cannot do. On the other hand, Colin is somebody that writes, creates content and has also viewers. His viewers know that they cannot do political analysis. They cannot do like analysis or predictions on economic policy or stuff like that because he's very specialized. On the other hand, people that just do, have pages about clothing and that those very basic type of clothing styles, they have a lot of competition because many other people can do like the same thing.
So on the one hand, it's the try to be unique.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, because we are talking about things that are obviously dangerous, and so to say, photos at places where you know that it's dangerous. The question is, you are bringing yourself into a certain danger just for that perfect photo. So is your life not worth more than a photo? I mean, you have to see it like on the one, like a balance. On the one side you have your life, on the other side you have the perfect photo. And what weighs more? I mean, normally your life weighs so much more than just one single photo. So
Yeah.
why do people risk just risk and don't care just to get more clicks or just to receive more fame? I mean, how could this even be possible, that you don't see yourself as alive anymore, but that you get part of sociality? I mean, sociality in a kind of, there's social media, and everything that happens there is in a kind of network in a digital world, and and your life suddenly becomes only digital, only part of this network,
I
but you
think
don't see it anymore as life.
I think there is like a very usually thing that is quite it's a general underlying theme. The fact that the both of us we talked about neoliberalism in the past, and how neoliberalism usually connects to this whole like theme that we're talking about is the fact that everything is getting commodified. And besides, things that more traditionally were commodified and maybe they are just entering a new phase, people themselves are becoming commodity. They are becoming products. They are becoming objects because influencers usually are judged as a product. They are very disposable.
Yes. So sociality and commodity go together. You parasocialize yourself.
Yeah, and you are not nobody like this idea that the influencer is something more than you can see, or he or she is something more than something that can generate revenue, money, headlines and stuff like that is totally unheard of, because you basically influencers because they transform themselves in personal brands. When you transform yourself into a brand, meaning yourself as a person, not your work, this is very important. You automatically go through this process of commodification. You are turning
But
yourself
as an
into a
influencer,
product.
we are going through a contradiction here. We said the influencer is the work, so the person becomes the work. So we cannot distinguish anymore between the person and the work. I thought that was the main problem.
Yeah.
And added to this, we have a commodification, which has a huge impact, because if the person and the work cannot be distinguished anymore, because the person is a work, a person makes oneself only through the work and becomes the work, because everything that the person does is automatically also part of the work, then any commodification means that the person oneself becomes a mass there or aware. And I said the word like sociality, and I have to make this clear, because it's like we are social beings, so we have on the one hand social lives, then we have what we have seen, parasocial lives probably today, and then it seems like, because just because you have a parasocial life, it does not mean that you gave up your own life. I mean, as a normal user, not as an influencer, but as a normal social media user, you can like turn off your device and you are still existing as a normal person, But it seems like that an influencer cannot. I mean, to put off the device, like, or to deconnect, would be like the death of an influencer, because one is always bound to being present, you know and this also means that whatever you do, you are present. And this means that your sociality, your sociability, everything that has to do with your social behavior becomes digitalized. You only exist, you kind of exist in the analogous world, but you don't exist in the analogous world, because you perceive yourself of how others perceive you, but you don't even know the others who perceive you, because you just know them through your parasocial life, and you try to be their friends through accommodating yourself. But at the other hand, because you have to pretend to be someone who you are not, just to reach the people, to influence, you kind of lose your own self, because you always have to create content. So does this mean that people take themselves risks just because they don't have any idea of their self anymore, because they kind of lost their sense of life and only see, like, to take a metaphor, like dollar signs in their eyes? Do they just see like the dollar signs in their eyes and think like, oh, I can make money with this, oh, I can make money with that, so that they would do everything just to get more?
I think a situation that usually occurs is the following. As an influencer becomes more and more popular, usually I saw a lot of situation in which they kind of start to build up of cultish type of following in the way that they get a lot of followers. Followers equal money and revenue and influence and so on, sponsorships and yada yada yada. And when usually they are very charismatic and they have this very type of cultish following, this usually what occurs is the development of a very type of this narcissistic type of culture. And usually what happens next is that they have a following which constantly tells the influencers, oh, that they are the best, that everything that they do is perfect. Because of the nature of their job, they usually don't leave their house. They are totally independent, as work type, and they basically create a very tight bubble around them, in which like their sense of reality and of the exterior world usually totally dilutes. And that's why I think they kind of, after a period, they lost total touch with reality.
Yes, that's a very, very important problem because it is clear. I just want to repeat it, but I already made it clear in one of my works, like that we have to see it. We have to differentiate between the world where we live and the world that we consume. And it is not my invention. I took it from Helmut Krauss. He wrote a book called Computer Democracy. Actually, it's about how to put democracy in a digital era. So it's something very interesting because he already wrote this book in 1972. So it's already a very old book, and it's really still a very, very current issue. But what is interesting is that in the beginning of the book, he himself writes like that we seem to live in two worlds. And by the way, in my theory, I think there are even three realms. But let's take this two world now because for this discussion, it's enough. Um, there is, according to him, there's a world of experience or our daily life world. He calls it Lebenswelt or Erfahrungswelt. And this is something that where we live in our everyday life, and it seems that it doesn't get any better because we are confronted with a kind of reality that we don't like. And then there is like the world of the media, the world of consumption, Konsumwelt, in which we have the possibility to be part of, to take part in something. Like when we see a soccer game, you know, we kind of get one with the soccer game. I mean, the person who is kicking the ball, we think like, does he get it into the does he get it into the goal? It feels like we are involved in it as well, even though we are just the viewer. And at any time such an event ends and we are back confronted with our kind of real world. But the thing is here, like that the influencer seemingly does not have anymore a world of experience or a daily life and a world of consumption, because it seems like because he kind of gets together, he kind of creates a personality in that, or let's say it like this: the influencer receives a kind of personality in the world of consumption, and this reality he can create himself or herself, because the person can become what he always wanted to be. I mean, you can make your brand the way you always wanted to be perceived, always the way you wanted others to perceive you, even if you're not even that person. So you can create your whole fantasy personality, because you can put aside your past, you can put aside all the things that disturb you in your life. You can just make the person you always want to present. Like you can be just an example. You can be a completely unsuccessful person, but you can take like photos in front of good cars and like post them and say like, hey, look at my new car, and people believe that you have a new car. Or you can like rent a good house for a week and take a lot of photos and say like, hey, look how great my place is, even though you just rented it for a week. But I mean, you can be who you want to be. And it seems like that in this way you kind of lose your yes, you lose yourself, because from time to time you only you it seems like some influencers start to believe their fake life themselves, because other people, they give you reaction,
Yeah.
they and it seems like, so we have seen in Krauch, there's in his model of these two worlds, there's a barrier. Like when the event is over, you when the football event, another important event is over, you are confronted with daily life again. But an influencer seemingly can always go back into his world. I mean, the event is never over, because you can be 24/7 in your social network, and you can always be the person you pretend to be. And so it means like that kind of your reality and your fake life, your life you created. That's the fake life, I call it now, simplified like this. The life, the personality you created, you can kind of, yes, you can. They can like connect, even though it's normally two completely different worlds, because the one world has nothing to do with the other world. What I mean, we know this. When we watch a film, it does not make us be part of the film, but we are able to watch it. So seemingly, we are not part of the film, though we are able to watch it. But in social media, we take part. And it seems like that through this, our daily life and this consumptional life, this really fake life or fake world, because everybody can pretend to be someone, get together. And from time to time, if you are like a hero in the world of consumption, these people feel like heroes in real life. And so they do not perceive danger anymore, because they think, I am someone, I can do anything I want. And so they probably put themselves into danger for the perfect photo, because they do not really have a clear that what other people have, this kind of perception of this world, because to them all what counts are followers, likes, comments, interaction, algorithm, because this is kind of their life. And so they kind of are disconnected with the real dangers of this daily life, right?
Yeah, they become increasingly more disconnected. And another thing is, I think the economical base, the environment in which all of this like happens is quite relevant, because many influencers, as I see them, they don't see liberty, like personal liberty, outside of consumption, outside of the capacity to buy. And you know how much power buying gives you. When you kind of get trapped in this type of mentality, you usually don't see something more to life and liberty other than to buy products or services. You don't see liberty anymore as the capacity or the possibility of having your own thoughts, having your own ideas, going into nature, stuff that are in some ways you cannot commodify them in,
So to
in their essence.
so to put it like in one aphorism, if you're always staring at the screen, you don't see the nature around you anymore.
Yeah.
So okay, so maybe would you summarize of what we have just said now? so that we can see whether we have whether we already discussed everything or whether we have to take in more things. So maybe you want to summarize what we just discussed.
Sure. I think one of the most important ideas that we discussed is the fact that influences and like the culture that revolves about around them is pretty much based on the idea of parasocial relationships, which unlike other type of professionals that activate in the online world, like columnists for newspapers and other professionals that create work online and they spread their work through the means of the internet. um, Usually influencers create content, but the way in which they have this connection with their audience, their connection tends to or wants to present itself as being something very personal, like from one friend to the other. We exchange ideas about lifestyle, about our personal preferences, about certain things. It's not the same as you would have a columnist from a newspaper and the reader usually reads whatever the columnist posts on a daily or weekly basis, and that's all. Usually the columnist, he's seen through his works. As an influencer is rather seen through his personality, through his like personal traits, quirks, and so on. So basically, what is a huge distinction is that influencer is a brand in himself. As with a columnist from a newspaper, you can still make rather a slight distinction between his work and him as a private person. As with an influencer, you don't have like this dichotomy anymore between like the work and the private individual. Another thing is that everything that relates to influencers and this risk taking
Behavior.
traits that they have is due to the fact that usually because they work as let's say a freelancer, especially influencers that have a lot of following and they basically have this as a day-to-day job. They don't come in contact with other people, or they don't have like bosses or CEOs that are above them. So basically when you are your own boss and you surround yourself with a huge audience that is connected with you due to your personality, not because of a certain type of intellectual or artistic work that you do. Usually what happens is that you'll all mostly or overwhelmingly get very positive feedback from your viewers, from your audience, and you will basically place yourself in a bubble where everybody agrees with you, everybody thinks you're the best, everybody thinks they kind of put you on the pedestal of a semi deity. And maybe the final thing that we need to address when it comes to this whole influencer and risk taking culture is the fact that many influencers see their liberty only through the means of consumption. When they consume products, services, they get this type of feeling of liberty, of personal liberty. While they don't see liberty in the things that cannot be commodified. That's why everything that they do with their audience, every step that they take, every type of interaction that they have, is much more seen through the lens of how much money can I do through this move, how much money can I make through, responding to comments, how much money can I make through like posting a video about a personal story of mine. So usually their sense of social behavior gets so distorted because in essence social behavior and professional behavior, which in itself is still social, are distinct from each other. Person like professional behavior or what you do at the workplace is one thing, and what you do in your social life is another thing. With them, this line basically is totally erased, and they usually need to judge any type of social interaction that they have with their audience or even with people that they know in their personal life through the means of how much revenue can I generate from it.
And this leads to disconnection because you don't have you don't really see yourself beyond your digital life. Your digital personality and your analogous personality kind of become one. You cannot differ between them anymore.
Exactly.
And finally, it is not only influencers who take these dangerous pictures, but seemingly others who are, let's say, influenced by influencers. So it seems like that influencers have to become aware of their responsibility, that what they show others possibly will make others imitate them, which means that we have to appeal to people that they have to be aware that if they do something dangerous, they cannot say it's the other people's responsibility not to do this because they themselves they themselves know that whatever they do will have an impact on others because it is kind of their job to have an impact on others, right?
Yes.
So, okay, I think so. The topic became very clear today. Um, don't forget, everyone, to subscribe to our channel, to share the link of our episode in social media because we want to be a good example, hopefully, and also want to give, let's say, a discussion, and we want to engage with people to discuss what we discuss, so that people think and rethink our thoughts. And of course, nobody has to disagree. It has to agree to us. People can also disagree, but we want to give an input, a food for thought. And you can help us by sharing, by subscribing, of course, because this way you can get an interaction with us. Um, so thank you for listening to this episode, and see you next time. Bye.